Hi, welcome to Teen Book Bites. My name is Lauren, and I will be your host today. We have librarians from across Los Angeles Public Library to share with you teen books on the topic of sustainability and environmental justice. All of the books that you hear about today are available through the library, either digitally or physically through the library catalog, and available to pick up at one of our 26 library to go locations across the city. We chose to focus on sustainability and environmental justice books today for several reasons. Obviously, it's an important topic that affects all of us, but more importantly, young people and teens play a huge role in environmental activism, and we wanted to share some of their stories with you and inspire more people to get involved no matter what age they are. On top of that, our Winter Reading Challenge, A New Day in LA, encourages participants to become citizen scientists and take on environmental projects in their neighborhoods. If you haven't registered already, please visit our website. You can see the link right here, lapl.org/winter, to sign up. The challenge ends on January 9th, but that still gives you plenty of time to complete 5 activities and be entered into a prize drawing. And just by watching this program today, that counts as one of your activities. So to kick off our book recommendations, I'm going to hand things over to Mariah from the Cahuenga Branch Library with our first recommendation.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Mariah. I'm a YA librarian at Cahuenga. I read Breathe by Sarah Crossan. Now this book is a dystopic fiction novel set in the far future where people live in these pod cities where manufactured air is pumped in because basically trees and the oxygen levels outside these cities have plummeted so much humans cannot survive. The reason being it was over farming because of food shortages, or so people are told. This follows 3 main characters. Alina, she's a resistance fighter / terrorist, all because she cut pieces of a plant off from a real life tree that was in a museum. It's illegal to even try and grow plants. There are severe penalties. That's why she's on the run and considered a terrorist. Then there's Quinn. He's a premium, which means he's rich and does not have to worry about paying for any amount of the manufactured air that there is. His best friend Bea is an auxiliary. Now that means she's poor, and they are taxed heavily, and they can't do things normal like exercise, dancing. Sometimes their babies have to be tied down in the cribs at night so they don't move around so much and use oxygen. So there definitely is a huge class system in the pod cities, and it's run by the Breathe Ministry. So Alina is saved by Quinn and Bea as they go camping outside the pod city, which is believable. It's something that people do. Quinn has a crush on Alina, and that's basically why he saves her. And they do have oxygen tanks and supplies. So they follow Alina, who is going to the resistance movement headquarters. Along the way, they meet a drifter who are people that are considered very dangerous and the enemy that live in the outer lands. And they learn from this drifter the real truth, that it wasn't completely over farming. The ministry actually destroyed the trees on purpose, all to force people into these pods where they breathe manufactured air that actually is addictive. And they can actually survive on their own outside the pods if trained on this small amount of oxygen that is there. And there are trees growing outside these pods. People have been told no trees exist anymore. So, not to give away a lot more, let's just say Bay actually visits the resistance stronghold and sees a huge greenhouse with actual live trees. It's gorgeous. It like makes her cry. And she realizes she wants to join the movement, because what does she have to go back to? Her whole family just suffer constantly. Quinn learns a terrible secret that absolutely destroys his life and everything he knew. And there also is a huge war that goes on between the Ministry Army and the resistance movement. Now, in regards to sustainability and environmental justice, that's what the whole group, the resistance group, is about. They are trying to recreate the world, fix it, and let the people know the truth, that they can survive outside these pod cities, and that they're addicted to this fake manufactured air. And the ministry is completely they're the cause of all this, all because they want the elite to have control. What I absolutely loved about this book was the differences and strengths between the different characters. It's extremely well written. The plot twists are quite exciting. I found that some characters really, when they started to change their goals because they realized their whole life was a lie, so pretty much blew open their whole world. And ultimately, there's a sense of hope, even though the story sounds quite bleak. These characters have such strength in the face of pretty much ultimate annihilation. So I recommend this book highly. It's book 1 of a 2-book series. I look forward to the second book. I read it on Hoopla, which is available through our e-media. You can locate that on our webpage. It also is printed material that you can request through our Library to Go service. So just go on our website and it'll give you all the information and have your library card ready. So I hope you enjoy the book as I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Morya. That sounds seriously frightening, but I love that like the teens are like so politically active and part of the resistance. So that was awesome. All right, next up we have Cindy from the Northridge branch.
Hello, everybody. So my book is Orleans by Sherry Smith, and it's also a dystopian novel that imagines a world devastated by the consequences of climate change. After a series of powerful hurricanes, then the outbreak of a deadly fever, thousands of people are killed in the Gulf Coast of the United States. To stop the fever from spreading to other parts of the country, a wall is built and the area is quarantined. Many years later, the quarantined area is now called Orleans, and it's a dark and dangerous place. A primitive society has formed and separated into tribes based on blood type. Certain blood types are more susceptible to the fever, and they hunt other types to farm their blood for the regular transfusions that they need to keep the fever at bay. The book's protagonist, 15-year-old Fen de la Guerre, is part of the O-positive tribe, which is attacked by another tribe. The O-positive's leader dies after giving birth to a baby girl, and Fen promises to get the baby safely to the outer states, which lie beyond the wall. In the meantime, a scientist from the outer states named Daniel has snuck over the wall into Orleans, where he hopes to continue his quest to find a cure for the Delta fever. He meets Fen when both of them are in a dangerous predicament, and they agree to help each other with their individual missions. Their uneasy alliance is tested as they navigate the perils of Orleans, and it becomes clear that they need each other in order to survive. I recommend this book, especially for its world building. The author paints a vivid and bleak picture of what could happen if climate change is left unchecked. Devastating storms, rising water levels, and widespread destruction and disease. Survivors must compete for what resources remain and are stripped of their humanity as they resort to hunting and killing each other. This and other dystopian novels increase our awareness of a potentially frightening future and hopefully inspire us to take action to prevent it.
Thank you, Cindy. Another one that also sounds super frightening, but also like kind of realistic. It's scary.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure. I think it was particularly powerful because of the pandemic, you know, and this was about another pandemic that caused a whole section of the country to be quarantined. And you could actually see that happening, you know, with what's going on right now.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of books that I read recently now, like you look at them with different eyes, like thinking about it as like through a pandemic and a mask wearing view. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And next up we have Ruma from the Sunland Tahunga branch.
Hello everyone, I am Ruma Gonzales. I am going to talk about the book One Earth by Anuradha Rao. Anuradha Rao is a Canadian-born conservation biologist of Indian and indigenous descent. She uses her root as a source of knowledge and strength to defend Earth from harmful and destructive practices. Ms. Rao portrays 20 other people of color who are actively working to protect and restore various parts of the environment, such as forest, soil, water, wildlife, and others. Each of them identifies themselves according to their race, color, ages, and religion with attractive color photographs. These environmental defenders are from all over the world. They explain how their background insists them to become an activist. The activist stories are extraordinary. From Ken Liu's Saving Forest to Dipani Sutaria's request to encourage the study and protection of India's Irrawaddy dolphins, to Ghanimat Azhari's use of mapping as a tool for empowering Iran's nomadic tribes, to Lukasi Aragutaniak's work using traditional Inuit and Cree knowledge in environmental assessment. Their messages echo each other with hope in what can happen when people come together and make small changes that add up. Taken together, it is a powerful answer to Anuradha's framing questions. Who is an environmental defender? What does he or she look like? Maybe like you, maybe like me. We are all children of this earth. At the end, the book provides valuable resources and glossary and index. We can use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruma. That sounds like a wonderful book. I love that it talks about that it's people from all over the world of all ages, and even just the smallest thing makes a difference.
Differently, all over the world, you can know, and beautiful photographs. Oh, that express everything. Those photographs, these colorful photographs, is express so much stuff. You know, is encouraged to read it.
Thank you. I'm going to check that one out. Next up, we have Ziba from Baldwin Hills.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about Life as We Knew It by Susan Beth Pfeiffer. which was published in 2006, but reading it in 2020 makes one wonder if Susan could see into the future. In this dystopian novel, the main character, 16-year-old Miranda, and her family are left on their own, isolated at home with limited resources to survive. They have to ration food because markets as they knew it are no longer. They have to homeschool because school as they knew it is no longer. Christmas, birthdays, and New Year's, in the way that they knew it, become meaningless as the only gifts they wish for are health and that everyone in their families survives another day. In life as we knew it, it's not a deadly virus that causes this shift, but a meteor knocking the moon closer to the earth, causing a worldwide bunch of tsunamis, which drown many, and earthquakes, which crush many, and then volcanic ash blocks out the sun, so summers become a thing of the past, and now you're just always in winter. So this book will make you thankful things are not as bad as they could be in 2020. And it's a wake-up call to what's to come if we're not mindful of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziva. I remember when I read that book when it came out, I was so frightened because it reads so realistic. Like that stuff could really happen. Yeah, I'd be scared to read it right now to see just exactly how much of it has come true.
It was scary.
All right, next up we have Ken from the Lakeview Terrace branch.
Hi, my book is called Generation Brave. It's written by Kate Alexander and illustrated by Jade Orlando. Today's young people, Generation Z, are becoming activists, fighting for change in many aspects of life: climate change, gun control, LGBT rights, and awareness and treatment of mental illness, to name a few. In this short, colorfully illustrated book, we meet many of these young people and learn how they got started, filled with many links to social media for those who want to know more. We learn about Simone Biles, Jaden Smith, Greta Thunberg, Jazz Jennings, Hallie Thomas, Yura Shahadi, Nadia Okamoto, Marley Diaz, and many more.
Thank you, Ken. That sounds like a great book. I mean, I love that it focuses on young people, especially since they're the ones who really can have the power right now to make a difference.
It's a good overview, and it has, as I said, links to social media sites so people can follow these activists if they want to know more.
That's great. And that leads me right into my book recommendation, actually. So these two books are from Penguin Workshop, who has recently published a series called The Pocket Change Collective. And so far, there are 7 titles in this series. And as you can see, I can show you, they are literally pocket-sized books. They're tiny. But all of these books are written by young activists and artists. But I wanted to recommend these two shown here: Imaginary Borders by Xiutezcatl Martinez and Taking on the Plastics Crisis by Hannah Testa. Xiutezcatl Martinez is a 20-year-old Indigenous activist, leader, and hip-hop artist who has been advocating for environmental justice and climate change reform since he was 6 years old. Imaginary Borders is essentially a long-form essay and call to action about the climate crisis and specifically how it affects low-income communities and people of color. It's informative and incredibly inspiring. Similar to Imaginary Borders, Taking on the Plastics Crisis is written by a young activist. Hannah Testa is only 18 years old, and she has been passionate about the worldwide plastics crisis since she was very young. She's spoken in front of Congress about the problem and even created her own nonprofit organization. In this book, she gives the reader background information about the issue and the plastics industry. Plus, she gives lots of tips for eliminating single-use plastics in your household, an inspiration about how just a little bit of activism, like writing letters or expressing your concern to local community leaders, can have an impact. Both of these titles and others in the Pocket Change Collective series are available through Overdrive. Now we go back to Morya for another fiction title.
Hey. All right, everyone. So this book is called The Carbon Diaries, written by Saki Lloyd. It's from the viewpoint of a 16-year-old girl named Laura. She lives in the United Kingdom with her mom, dad, grumpy older sister. She deals with typical teen stuff like wanting to get the boy next door's attention, exam anxiety, and playing with her band, her one true passion. However, she also is in the country that is doing the first carbon rationing project. And it's going to take place for 15 years because they hope to reduce carbon emissions by at least 60% in that time. And this means there's many restrictions for everybody in the United Kingdom. Families are all given a card that's worth 200 points. If you go over those points, there are penalties, and they could even shut off your heat and light, and there's also monetary penalties. And to give you an idea of these restrictions, you can have only 5 minutes of showers a day, 1 hour of heat that does not go above 60.8 degrees. Forget using your car, that's pretty much frowned upon, and so is traveling by plane. And also, as a luxury, everyone gets to choose between a few things daily for only a small amount of time. And this includes using either your microwave, more lighting, or your smartphone. That's right. You only get to use it for a small amount of time. There is rioting starts, major blackouts. It's freezing because, the lack of heat. So Laura has to deal with all of this on top of her family, which is disintegrating. It's quite eye-opening, actually. In terms of sustainability and environmental justice, it really gives a realistic clear view of what might happen if the world doesn't get it together to try and deal with reducing carbon emissions and saving fuel and dealing with climate change. Also, there is a group in the book. Laura's friends with a girl that is a member of an environmental protesting group that, despite the restrictions and how difficult they are to deal with, the group believes in it and pretty much points out that, hey, it came to this and we have to deal if we want to save the earth. So what I ultimately loved about this book was it's written in diary format, and I found Laura to be quite sarcastic and hilarious at times, despite the heavy subject matter. Also, there is an LGBTQA character that is prominent. He's one of her friends. And there are other characters from different ethnicities, which was very nice to be included. I read this on Libby, but it is also available in print format for requests through our Library to Go service. Again, all you need is your library card for this, and you just have to go on our website and get more information on that. There is a book too, so I'm going to read that one, and I recommend this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Morya. I feel like I would eat up my points so fast from the amount of time I spend on my phone and using the heat and the microwave, everything.
Yeah, it's pretty much, she points out, I feel like I'm living in the Stone Age, all these things we take for granted.
Yeah, so used to it.
Yeah, after I finished it, I really sat and thought, like, wow, how much my life would change if I had those restrictions.
Yeah, wow, scary. All these fiction books are really scary. Next up, we go back to Cindy for another one of her recommendations.
Well, it's not just the fiction books that are scary. We've got some scary nonfiction ones as well. This one's called World Without Fish by Mark Kurlansky. Did you know that if we humans keep doing what we're doing, fish could be extinct in the next 50 years? This may not be upsetting news to people who don't eat fish or have much interest in fish, but they should be upset because the depletion of the fish we most commonly eat, such as tuna, salmon, and cod, will have a domino effect on the ocean. Oceans will be overrun by jellyfish and algae, which will result in the gradual disappearance of seabirds, reptiles, then mammals such as dolphins and whales. Since all of nature is interconnected, humans will also suffer the consequences. This illustrated nonfiction book explores the human actions that are harming marine life, including overfishing, pollution, and climate change. Modern fishing technology is almost too effective, catching not only too many of the targeted species, but unintentionally catching and destroying other species. Fishing techniques such as bottom dragging nets turn the ocean floor into a desert. Then there's the problem of pollution, such as toxic industrial byproducts and oil spills, which create dead zones in the oceans where fish cannot live. Most significantly to humans, these poisons are introduced into the food chain, and the amount of poison increases as you go higher up the food chain, so that the larger fish eaten by humans have the highest concentration. Global warming is yet another crisis for fish, as rising sea temperatures affect their reproduction. Fortunately, after all of that, the author says it's not too late to reverse the destructive course we're on, and he discusses solutions such as sustainable fishing, eating fish responsibly, reducing plastic consumption, and more. I highly recommend this book. It clearly explained a crisis that I didn't know much about, and made me aware of not only what could happen, but what we can actually do about it. I really enjoyed the illustrations throughout the book, and each chapter opens with a comic book narrative about a girl who grows up regularly going to the ocean with her father, and the two of them noticing the changes in the ocean and marine life over time. This book is perfect for scientifically curious teens, but also for those who are concerned about the overall health of our planet.
You're right. That one does sound scary as well. But I'm glad that the author has sort of a positive end, that there can be change if we all make an effort. So
yes, and he
that
really
sounds
does,
like another good one.
Yes, and he does gear the advice for what we can do to middle school and high school readers, so that they can see how they can get involved in helping address this serious problem.
Yeah, I feel like that's something, we may not always think about, like sort of the bottom end of the food chain, but it's all a domino effect, and eventually that will make a big difference for us too. All right, so we've got our last book recommendation of the day, and that is going to be from Ruma.
I will talk about the book Greta's Story. The subtitle is Schoolgirl Who Went on Strike to Save the Planet. It's by Valentina Camerini, and its illustrator Veronica Caratello and translator Morino Giovannani. Greta Thunberg's story is about hope, courage, and determination. You are never too young to make a difference. This is an inspiring true story of Greta Thunberg. On Monday, August 20, 2018, in Stockholm, Sweden, in hot summer, 15-year-old Greta Thunberg decided she could no longer ignore the problems facing the planet. Changes to the climate were more and more worrying, and it seemed as if no one was taking the problem seriously. Instead of going to school on that day, Greta tied her long hairs into two braids, put on a checked shirt and a blue coat, and walked out of the house and went on strike in front of Sweden's parliament building. Under her arm, she carried a wooden placard, "School Strike for the Climate." She sat there 8:30 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, but none of the politicians paid attention. But Greta was not discouraged. The strike continued. But on the second day, a few of the people passing by decided to stop. Greta was no longer alone. Other boys and girls joined her. On the sixth day of the strike, Greta suggested to everyone that they should talk about the protest on their social networks. The news began to spread. Every day, Greta took photos of the school strike, keeping a diary on Instagram. She thought environmental disaster risks causing wars and conflicts. The commitment of young people to Friday for Future is therefore a commitment to peace. On September 6, Greta post on Instagram profile to the world had drawn the attention of journalists, politicians, and ordinary people to the issue. Greta's protest, Friday for Future, or School Strike for Climate movement, which millions have now joined around the world. Greta was spoken at COP24, the UN Summit on Climate Change, and has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Greta's parents were proud of her, their daughter speaking in front of thousands of strangers, often in English. This is her story, but also that of many other girls and boys around the world willing to fight against the indifference of the powerful for a better future. At the end, book provides valuable resources and indexes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruma. I'm so glad that there are books for young people about Greta, because she is inspiring for people of all ages. I mean, as an adult, I find her super inspiring.
Courageous and incredible woman. Is she?
Yeah.
So young age, we cannot, it's unbelievable and inspiring to the young our teens.
Yeah, that it's possible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Please join us again next month for Teen Book Bites on Monday, January 25th at 3 p.m., where we will be sharing body positivity recommendations with you. And don't forget to tune into Los Angeles Public Library's YouTube and Facebook Live channels for Teen-tastic Tuesdays, programs at 4 p.m. on most Tuesdays. So thank you very much to all of our librarians for sharing these wonderful books with us, and thank you all for watching. Happy New Year.